Namato Ratanatayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Zem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and to my teachers. Hello, good evening everyone. So today is Sunday the 6th of December 2020, and this is Achan Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. As usual, I'm here with you all tonight just to share some of my thoughts and what I have understood, the teachings of the Buddha, and how can we help getting rid of all those unhappy moments, clutters, and sufferings. And apologies for a little delay for tonight because I was giving a talk, a group of people in Canada, on the occasion of the passing away of a remarkable man who was born untouchable, underprivileged, didn't have access to education, didn't have access to the temples, to the drinking water. Even his shadow regarded as unluck and bad luck. He was the Ambedkar, or Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar in India. So he was born untouchables in the community called Mahar, one of the very low caste community. And before the independence of India, at that time, the India was colonial country, a British colony. East India Company was governing the India. And meanwhile, the caste system was so strong and embedded that every people are defined by the castes. You are not even allowed to touch or to communicate if you are a low caste born. And Dr. Ambedkar was one of the lowest caste born boy. Somehow, because of his talent, because of his reading skills, he pursued himself studying hard, and he later got a scholarship from one of the governors, the British governors in India, and went to study in Columbia University, America, where he studied social science and then come to study London of Economic University in London and studied there. Further on, he studied Sanskrit language in Germany, and throughout his time he studied so well and well educated, probably one who had got 2 doctorate degrees at that time, from born in the very, very low castes, intelligence, and his books, probably no one has written that many books in India, and probably will not in the future, hope so. And also was pioneer, architect of Indian Constitution. He was the chairman, drafting the Constitution and defending all the clauses. And he fought for the freedom of all underprivileged people of India, for freedom and for the rights, human rights. Not only for the unprivileged people, but he also fought for the freedom of a woman. Women didn't have rights, but now, since the Constitution, in accordance with the law and the Constitution, all women have rights to choose to the divorce, inheritance, and move on. So he was such a wonderful, intelligent man who transformed modern India. Although people do not know much about him compared to Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru, who was the first Prime Minister, Nehru. Very few people know about Ambedkar, who was working alongside with the Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru. During the Nehru's first cabinet ministers, Ambedkar again became the first law minister and also led the drafting the Constitution. One thing which is very interesting here, that he was born Hindu. And because of the oppression, suppression, and treated so badly, less than an animal, and not allow these untouchables or underprivileged people to touch even the water, even no access to the temples. He himself agitated, saying that we have to be free from it. And he announced 1936 or 35, saying that he was born Hindu, which wasn't his choice, but he would not die Hindu. That was one of the greatest speech ever he gave, since he became such an important person for the independence of India, and as well as new form of modern India that shaped all India, all the country, all the people, and every fellow members of his community began to search that which religion he is going to adopt. And that was really politicized. Many religious people went to his place and conversed, discussed. It took him 20 years to study about the different religions. And after 20 years of studying different religions, he, in 1956, October the 14th of 1956, he formally converted to Buddhism, along with millions of his fellow community. And that was the beginning of a new era in Indian history, and also was a revival of Buddhism in India. Before that, Buddhism was suppressed, and obviously Buddhism was disappeared after the Muslim Turk invasion in India in about 11th century. For over 900 years, there wasn't any trace of any Buddhist available. And it is good, and credit goes to the British colony and treasure hunters, British treasure hunters, after having raided the journey to the west of Wengshan and Fahians, Chinese Buddhist monks traveled to India. British treasure hunters traveled place to place in India where the Buddha was born, where the Buddha enlightened, where he lived and where he taught. And with that treasure hunting, introduced new era of Buddhism in India. So credit about a revival of Buddhist pilgrimage sites in India and Nepal goes to the colony, a British colony. If treasure hunters from Britain, and it wasn't a colony, and enthusiastic about the new culture and history, Buddhism or Buddhist places that buried in a dense forests in India would not have introduced to the modern world. So that's why, in a way, in modern Buddhism should thank the British colony and treasure hunters, although they have stolen probably few good treasures from those places. And one of the big giant Buddha statue, Sultan Buddha statue made of brass, full brass, was also brought into England. Now it's established in Birmingham Museum. I remember when I was staying in Midlands, in the museum, we had a celebration of Buddha's birthday there in front of that huge brass Buddha statue. Further on, there are other information saying that some of the British treasure hunters at that time had collected some of the relics of the Buddha and some other treasures and passed down to their siblings. It's called a documentary on Buddha's relics. Although they have taken those treasures, but it has also given an opportunity to let the Buddhism introduce to the world where this Buddhism started from and what are these places. And with that, it confirms that Buddhism is not like a myth. And the life of the Buddha is not a myth like other deities in Hinduism. Further on, all the information that we can get from the traveler's journey and the scripture and Buddhist scriptures, that defines all those places. So as a result of that, Buddha became a historically proven man ever existed in the history during the time of 2,500 years ago. Archaeologically, it is proven. And mind you, this archaeological survey done not by the Buddhists, it's done by Westerners. And mostly from England. And one of the famous universities that are heavily involved with this survey, excavation and study about the Buddha's life and his staying in the monasteries is a Durham University. Durham University. And there are few scholars who really knows about those places. I think current UNESCO chairman also was a professor from Durham University who studied the birthplace of the Buddha in Nepal. So, with the introduction of these Buddhist sites in India and Nepal, the whole world began to study about the Buddha's teachings, and as a result of that, 1880s, people, British particularly, began to study Buddhist scriptures and establish so-called Pali Text Society, one of the oldest Buddhist organizations that purely studied on the Buddha's real teachings. And later on, gradually, people began to study Buddha's life and Buddha's teachings. And that also influenced Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar, who was untouchable but well-educated and well-versed. So throughout this 20 years after he announced that he would not die Hindu, he studied Buddhism. He even wrote a book on Buddha and his teachings. And he traveled in different places to give talks. He attended the conference, Buddhist conference in Myanmar, and gave a talk on Buddhism and Karl Marx, one of the very remarkable book comparing the Karl Marx theory and Buddhism. It was so hit at that time. And he also traveled to Nepal, and I gave a talk after his conversion to Buddhism in 1956, October 14th, 1966. After he converted to Buddhism, he had traveled to Nepal to give a talk in one of the Buddhist conferences. I think on that conference he gave Buddhism and Karl Marx, not in Myanmar. And sadly, after his conversion, December the 6th, which is today, so he converted to Buddhism in 14th of October, and then 2 months' time, December the 6th, he passed away. So he had only 2 months to work after his conversion to Buddhism. And during this 2 months' time, he inspired millions of people to convert into Buddhism. And that's how it's become New Buddhism in India, or Navayana, new vehicle. And that's how he became the revivalist, a Buddhist revivalist in India. And a forming of a new India. And nowadays, since his conversion to Buddhism in India, hundreds of new temples been established around the country, different places, and mostly those who become a Buddhists are from unprivileged people, unprivileged background. But because of his contribution and because of his dedication, his sacrifice, now every citizens of India got a rights for the higher education, a political agenda, being a good, become a politicians, running a good businesses, leading doctors, businessmen, lawyers, and so and so. He was even shown the title of Gems of India. So what we need to understand, one more thing here, that all the transformation that he had achieved and he had managed to develop in India was because of the education. Education was the key or a tool, essential tool for the transformation, for the development. And as a result, he copied the French Revolution theory, equality, fraternity, or another word he normally known as educate, agitate, and organize. So education is the key that everyone needs to learn. And agitate, here agitation is not that you dislike and you agitate, but you agitate with the right attitude. Stand on the truth and enlightening people what is the truth, without harboring any hate and anger towards someone who doesn't believe. And organize. Now organizing is basically very important. In terms of the social transformation theory, says someone will have a good idea for the social transformation, and this idea alone doesn't enough. It needs to promote, and after promotion again it needs some form of organizations to back it up, and only then any agenda that one has promoted would come to success, or at least continue until attain the successful. So that's why the last one, organize, is also his legacy for the new Buddhists to follow. When we look at the Buddha's teachings, again also similar. Buddha said, first educate, and after whatever you have learned, put it into practice. Patipatti, pariyatti, patipatti. Put it into practice. And when you put it into practice, the result will come. That's a pativeda. And that result is freedom from all the taints, all the sufferings, all the miseries. And we will attain the state of unconditioned state, unborn, unconditioned. And that is the ultimate goal of Nibbana. So, today I just wanted to dedicate this reflection, remembering the greatest man who has transformed himself from bottomless, neglected community to such a high level, and transformed himself, and also he dedicated and sacrificed for the freedom and transformation of so many millions of people in India, and who work alongside with the Mahatma Gandhi, forming a new India, which we have seen today. So thank you everyone for listening, and may you all be well and happy. Just to mind you, tomorrow I may not be able to give a talk because I'm going down to Glasgow to perform the funeral ceremony. So if not, then apologies for that. So thank you, and we'll see you maybe tomorrow or day after. Until then, good night, In a few moments' time, we're going to have an evening chanting and guided meditation. You're most welcome to join with us. Until then, thank you. Satu.